Welcome to the Label Reading Quick Start Guide. There's nothing more empowering than knowing that you can pick up any food and figure out how it fits into the FBT program. That is what this Quick Start Guide is going to teach you. So let's get started. By watching the other Quick Start Guides, you've learned how to use the food tracker and how to count portion sizes and serving of your food groups by using the FBT food list. But what if there's a food that's not on that food list? Then what? Then you use the secret weapon, the food label. By looking at a food label, you can figure out how many of your boxes you need to count. If you can find 3 nutrients, total carbohydrate, protein, and total fat on your food label, you can figure out where it goes in your boxes. You'll be in business. Let me show you how. First, what counts as a serving? You'll remember that this section of the food tracker is a brief reminder of what counts as a serving. If we look a little closer, you will see that next to the food group, it will tell you specifically what counts as a serving. For example, next to the food group starch, it says 15 CHO. CHO is an abbreviation for carbohydrate, and 3 grams of protein. So 1 serving of starch equals 15 grams of carbs plus 3 grams of protein. Moving down to the protein group, 1 serving of protein counts as 7 grams of protein. And down to fat, 1 serving of fat is 5 grams of fat. So let's take this information and put it to use with the food label. The first thing I want you to look at on a food label is the serving size listed. Why? Well, all the numbers on that food label have to do with the serving size listed. So the next question that I want you to ask yourself is, am I going to eat this amount? If the answer is yes, then great. Let's move on to calculating your servings. If it's no, then how much more or less are you going to eat? If you eat half the amount listed, then you would need to divide all the numbers in half. If you're going to eat double or triple the amount listed, then you would need to double or triple the amounts on the food label. What I have here is a homemade protein bar, and the serving size you see here is for 1/9 of the batch, or 1 bar. I'm going to eat just 1 bar, so I will use the label as it is. But if I was going to eat 2 bars, then I would need to double all those numbers. So after the serving size, the next 3 nutrients I'm going to look for are total fat, total carbohydrate, and protein. First, fat. 1 serving or 1 box of fat equals 5 grams of fat. So when I look at total fat on the food label, I'm going to take the number that I see there and figure out how many servings of fat that would be. So for total fat, I see that there's 5 grams of total fat in the 1 bar listed. And you always want to use total fat, not saturated fat or trans fat or anything else. You want to go with the total fat. So with the 5 grams that's listed, I know that if I eat 1 bar, then that's going to be 5 grams of fat, which also equals 1 box or 1 serving of fat. Next is starch. 1 serving or 1 box of starch equals 15 grams of carbohydrate with a little bit of protein included, 3 grams of protein. So first, with total carbohydrate, I see on the food label that there's 30 grams of carbohydrate in my 1 protein bar. So 15 grams of carbohydrate goes into the 30 grams 2 times, meaning that if I eat the 1 bar, that's going to equal 30 grams of carbs, which is going to take up 2 of my starch boxes. Now about that little bit of protein that's in a serving of starch. For every serving of starch, I also have to account for 3 grams of protein. So looking down at the protein group here, it starts out with 11 grams of protein. But because I'm using 2 servings of starch, I'm going to subtract out 6 grams before I count anything else additional in the protein group, which leads us to that group. 1 serving or 1 box of protein does equal 7 grams of protein, but remember, as you see in the parentheses, this is after the starch protein has been subtracted. So looking at the food label, the protein starts with 11 grams in the 1 protein bar, but I'm going to subtract out my starch protein first, and that's the 6 grams, which leaves me with 5 grams of protein left. If I eat the 1 bar, For 5 grams of protein, that's pretty close to 7 grams, so I'm going to round that up and count it as a full serving or a full box of protein. If there was just 3 or 4 grams left, then I could count that as half a serving. But because it gets bumped up to 5, I'm going to go ahead and count that as a full serving of protein. So in summary, if I eat my 1 protein bar, we can see that the total fat would be 5 grams of fat. I would take in 30 grams of carbohydrate and an extra 5 grams of protein. So based on those numbers, I'm going to count it as 1 serving of protein, 2 servings of starch, and 1 serving of protein. Let's try another example. How about a Kit Kat bar? You heard me right. You could even have a treat, a candy bar on this program, because it's not about classifying foods as good foods or bad foods. It's about figuring out how any food can fit. This program is not about absolutes, meaning you can never eat sugar, you can never have pizza, you can never have a treat. Rather, it's about figuring out how you can incorporate those foods if you choose. It gives you the power and you the control. So let me show you how you would make it work. Remember that first, I want to look at the serving size listed. And you can see here under the nutrition facts, the serving size is 1 bar, so the full Kit Kat bar. Then I'm going to go to my 3 nutrients, total fat, total carbohydrate, and protein. Starting with fat. Reminder, 1 serving or 1 fat box is equal to 5 grams of fat. So looking at the total fat on the food label, I see that there's 12 grams of fat. 5 goes into 12 2 times. So if I eat the 1 Kit Kat bar, that's going to count as 12 grams of fat, which I'm going to count as 2 boxes of fat. Again, if it were an extra 3 grams, then I would probably count that as half. So then it could be 2.5 boxes of fat. But since it's just 2, we'll just leave it as the 2 boxes. Next is starch. Reminder that 15 grams of carbohydrate and 3 grams of protein equal a serving of starch. So looking at the food label on total carbohydrate, I see that there's 27 grams of carbohydrate. 15 grams goes into 27 grams just about 2 times. So if I eat the full Kit Kat bar, I'm going to take in that 27 grams of carbohydrate is also going to equal 2 starch boxes. Now, remember the little bit of protein that's included in the starch. So because I'm using 2 servings of starch, I'm also going to count for double that protein listed. So when I go to the protein group on this nutrition facts label, I'm going to have my 3 grams as listed, but subtract out the 6 from the starch. So how many servings of protein would that be? Well, let me remind you that 1 serving or 1 box of protein equals 7 grams of protein. Again, after the starch protein has been subtracted. So looking at the protein, I started with 3 and subtracting the 6 grams from the starch, which leaves me with 0. If I eat the Kit Kat bar, I don't get any extra protein, and so no boxes will be checked when it comes to the protein group. So let's summarize the Kit Kat bar. If I eat the full Kit Kat bar, that will count as 2 servings of fat and 2 servings of starch with no additional protein. Let's say, gosh, I really wanted to eat that Kit Kat bar, but I only have 1 serving of fat and 1 serving of starch left. Well, then you could simply break that Kit Kat bar and just have half instead, where it could still fit within the boxes you have left. What about dining out? Like treats, restaurants can typically become a time when you would go off your diet. Well, because this is not a diet, and because I know that eating out occasionally is part of a normal lifestyle, I want to show you how you can be successful at dining out so you can continue on your path to your forever body transformation. Let's go through a couple of tips for dining out. The first one is to check the nutrition facts online. Most restaurants nowadays have their nutrition information online. Please use that as a resource. I'm going to use McDonald's here as an example, which is probably the last place in the world you would think you could eat when you're trying to lose weight. Well, I did say that all foods can fit, right? So let me show you how. This will lead us to our next tip, which is to know what you're going to order before you leave your house or before you step into the restaurant. Do your homework at the computer or at your phone in the car so that you can go to the restaurant empowered and prepared to order, knowing that what you're going to order will fit within the boxes you have left on your food tracker. Websites now are so user-friendly, and with the information just at your fingertips, it becomes really quite simple to figure out how they can fit in those boxes. So this is a snapshot of McDonald's interactive website. If I were to roll my mouse over any item there, a hamburger or a sandwich, it's going to blow it up and give me a brief snapshot of the nutrition in that particular food item. So let's use the cheeseburger as an example. First thing, I'm going to look at the 3 nutrients listed: total fat, total carbohydrate, and protein. Starting with fat. Reminder that 1 serving or 1 box of fat is equal to 5 grams of fat. So in the cheeseburger, if I eat the whole thing, I would take in 12 grams of fat. Like the Kit Kat, 5 goes into 12 about 2 times. So I'm going to count the 1 cheeseburger with the 12 grams of fat as 2 boxes of fat. Next is starch. Reminder that 1 serving of starch or 1 box of starch counts as 15 grams of carbohydrate with that little bit of 3 grams of protein included. So when I look at the label on the website here, it tells me that in the cheeseburger there's 33 grams of carbohydrate. 15 goes into 33 about 2 times. So if I eat this hamburger, then I'm going to take in that 33 grams of carbohydrate, which is going to equal 2 boxes of starch. Now, remember the protein that's included in the starch. There's 3 grams of protein for every serving, and because I'm counting this as 2 servings of starch, I need to allow for 6 grams of protein. 1 serving of protein is 7 grams after the starch protein has been subtracted. So the cheeseburger has 15 grams of protein. When I subtract out that 6, that leaves me with 9 grams left. And 9 grams is pretty close to 7, so I'm going to go ahead and count that 9 grams as one of my protein boxes. So in summary, if I eat the McDonald's cheeseburger, that would count as 2 fat, 2 starch, and 1 protein. One last tip for using food labels when dining out. It's not uncommon for some of your favorite restaurant foods to be very high in starch, protein, and fat. A typical restaurant portion is 2.5 times the amount that you should be eating. So naturally, if you're looking at the nutrition facts online for those kinds of meals, they're going to reflect those higher numbers. So what if you don't have enough boxes for the item or the meal that you want to eat? You will need to find a way to change it in some way. The question I want you to ask yourself is, what can I do to change this, to make it fit within the boxes that I have allowed? There's a few things, and let me go through some examples. The first thing would be, if I don't have enough starch boxes, I could remove some starch, meaning I could take off the top bun of my hamburger if I only have 1 instead of 2 starches left. If there's potatoes or rice or pasta in my meal, I could ask for that to be removed and ask for double the serving of vegetables. Let's say that I have too much fat in my meal for the boxes that I have left. Well, I could ask for the mayonnaise to be removed or the butter to be put on the side instead of on the item. Any sauces or dressings, could those please be put on the side? And that way you have control over how much fat you add and can count it accordingly. Another thing you could do to change it would be to eat half. If you have half the boxes for what's written on the website, then when the meal comes out, you could literally cut everything in half, put it in a to-go box, and then eat what's on your plate, and that would fit within the boxes that you have left. Another thing you could do is if you know what you would like to eat just isn't going to fit with the boxes that you have left for that day, is to go ahead and plan that meal or that choice for a different day when you can make it work better with what you have given for the day already. Let me tell you that learning how to read food labels is just another step in the right direction towards gaining confidence in your ability to include all kinds of foods. With normal diets, there's no way that any of these foods would be included, like a cheeseburger or a Kit Kat bar. They would be considered bad choices that you would feel guilty about if you ate. This program takes that guilt away. If it fits within your boxes, you can make it work. You have the control over those boxes and how you want to use them. This program is not about a diet controlling your choices. It's about you taking control of your life and your choices and truly changing your body forever. I know that you can do this.